Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author, Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Jenna Satterthwaite. And see, I was so proud of myself for getting the name right that I got confused. Anyway, born in the Midwest, Jenna grew up in Spain, lived briefly in France, and is now happily settled in Chicago with her husband and 3 kids. Jenna studied classical guitar at Conservatorio Profesional.
Conservatorio Profesional de Música de Zaragoza.
Yeah, see, this is why we have to have Jenna say these things. And earned her BAs in English Lit and French at Indiana University. Now she works a 9-to-5 style job where she types many emails while drinking many cups of excellent coffee. Once upon a time, Jenna moonlighted as a singer-songwriter in folk band Thornfield. In the winter, you can find Jenna obsessively and cozily pounding out novels on her laptop by the fireplace. And in the summer, you can find her getting sunburned at the pool with her kids, vaguely wondering how a novel is even written. She loves sushi. She loves sushi, reading in her natural habitat, aka her bed, and women taking back their power. Made for You is her debut novel. Despite all the hiccups in there, Jenna, your bio is very, very impressive. So nice to have you on the show. And everybody, look at this fabulous cover, which I think is so amazing. So before we get going on all the fun stuff, Jenna, can you tell our listeners a little bit about Made for You?
Absolutely. This is the book that is ushering me into the world of being a published author, which took a very long time. I've been writing for 10 years. So this book is my doorway. Hooray.
Congratulations.
It's, I think, the 8th or 9th novel that I've written, and I'm a fast drafter, so it came out really fast in about under 2 months. It was strangely easy to write, which I don't know how that happened. And, you know, it's a book that I used to escape from a time of grief in my life. I had a lot of fun writing it. The grief did work its way in there, but for me, writing is just complete escapism. So every time I look at this book, I'm like, oh yeah, this was my happy time in the middle of a really sad time, which was my sister dying of cancer.
God, Jen, I'm so sorry.
So she did read it before she died, and she approved. So
of course,
yeah,
I'm sure
it's
she
a
loved
bittersweet.
it.
She did. Yeah, it's a bittersweet book, and I'm proud to have it be the first of my books that's on shelves because of its connection with my sister and our journey through her cancer together.
Oh, congratulations. So tell us a little bit about what it's about, because it's such
Absolutely.
a fun premise and story and everything. Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, so it is about a synthetic woman who competes on basically a version of The Bachelor, which I call The Proposal. And she's competing against human women. There's some little friction there. And not everyone knows she's a synth at first because she looks just like a normal human woman. So she's competing for love to get her fairy tale, and that's what she believes her purpose in life is. But surprise, surprise, things get gnarly. She does win the heart of the Bachelor. That's not a spoiler. It happens there's dual timelines. It happens right away.
Right.
So one timeline is her journey through The Proposal and reality TV. And the other timeline is 15 months later when she's married, but maybe not quite so happily, and her husband has disappeared. And she is accused of murdering him, of course. So she basically has to go on this journey of uncovering the true killer because, you know, she has to clear her name. No one believes in the synths are good. Well, not no one, but in her town, people are very suspicious of synthetic people.
Yeah,
and,
as people would be.
She's the only one standing up for herself. So it's a journey of reality TV big cast to the isolation of her being really alone. As she tries to salvage her life.
Yeah, and she has a child. So she's this as a mother, we all know exactly what we would do, right? To protect our children. And this child only has one parent. So it's she needs, and you know, I mean, and also there's all this wonderful, you did such a wonderful job with the sort of the idea of the synthetic woman. And like, so of course, we all talk now all the time now about AI and how does it understand emotion. And so this is what, you know, this is obviously an extension of that question, right? Like, what do we, can emotion be learned? Can she, you know, I mean, she can be programmed, but like, you know, and I think we learn in the process of this book, it definitely can. And it, you know, what's kind of funny about it, and I think admirable about the book and the writing is that, is that I felt like it was so, it felt real. Like it felt like this is absolutely what would happen if we developed these. I mean, for sure about like the discrimination against her, but then also like she's being, right. Some people want to kill her because she's fake. The company that built her, you know, you know, they have a stake in what happens to her. Everybody has a stake.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And let's talk about that. So let's just step back from that. And I want to explore sort of the idea of these sort of proposal bachelor type shows, right? Where you end up with like, you know, and I know there's also the Bachelorette, but you have these like 15 women or however many women it is, like fighting for the love of this one man, and what that must be like, right? It's such an interesting. So how did you get down that road, and what, you know, what are your thoughts on that? And because it's fascinating.
We could go down a lot of paths.
I know.
I'll start by saying that I do love my reality TV love shows. The Bachelor, I probably watched it 10 years ago. I haven't actually watched it recently, but I've been more into Love is Blind, and that's what I was watching at the time on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so it's such an interesting cycle. I've told my husband, because every time I watch these shows, he does not watch them with me. He just like laughs at me from the sidelines.
Yeah.
And he's like, Jenna, you're so upset about these people. Like, why do you keep torturing yourself watching things unravel? Because they do every time.
Of course.
And I've explained to him that it's really a cycle of addiction for me. Like, at first, you believe in everyone. And that's Julia. That's my main character.
Yeah.
You go in kind of with the rosy view. Oh, they're looking for love. You're rooting for them.
Yeah.
And then it progresses, and your faith in humanity that first episode ramped up just starts to crumble.
Yes. Yeah.
By the end, you're totally depressed, and you're like,
right.
What are we doing as humans in this world? But thankfully, there's, you know, something else coming. There's a new season. Yeah. And so you take that sad despair, and then you press play on the next season, and you get to feel happy again for like an episode or two. So
that is hilarious. That is torture.
I don't know why I do it to myself, but I think probably a lot of people can relate because these shows are popular.
Oh, they're so popular. I mean, people are, I get it. Yeah, I have not gotten that addiction. I think probably since I'm addicted to like sugar and stuff, it's okay if I don't have that one too. But it is, you know, you just, and then you read about them and it's like people follow like when they break up a year later or if they have trouble, and you just like, it's suddenly like these are parts of your extended family or movie stars or something that we're all following. That is so.
Yeah, it's a sad cycle. And Julia has a little bit of that experience in a different way. She has the rosy view of everyone at the beginning and a rosy view of her purpose and why the show exists and why she exists. And it crumbles.
And she doesn't have a family, right? No, she doesn't have a family. So it's like also like these are the first human people that she's gotten to know. So she finds this like group of women kind of like family, but of course none of them are looking at her like family, right? Because it's all so cutthroat and they just are, you know, out for blood. And
I mean, in real life on these shows, there's always someone who says, like episode 1, I'm not here to make friends, right?
Yeah.
So like, these are the women that she's close to, quote unquote, and it's really her journey of figuring out, I guess, what love is. That's one of her many journeys. And it's not as straightforward as she thinks at first. Of course.
No, of course. And another one of hers is sort of her power, right? Like finding her power.
Yeah.
Which, because being a, you know, machine, or at least partially machine, like there isn't, I like this sort of, I think you're probably doing this on purpose. I'm going to assume you're doing this sort of analogy to women in general, right? That it's like, we're oftentimes raised to sort of believe we don't really have that much power. And so, and of course, this is my favorite subject always with because it's why we do Killer Women, is this idea that it takes something kind of hard and traumatic for us to be like, wow, look at the power we actually do have, right? And so,
Yes.
and it can
Yes.
break us, of course, it can also break us, but even through being broken, I think women, that's how we figure out, like, oh no, we really can't take anyone else's word for what we need in our lives.
Yes, that was a fascinating journey for me to kind of look at again, because it is one that I went through as well as a
Yeah.
girl and then as a young woman. Um, I came from a fairly conservative background, and there were a lot of assumptions tied in that I didn't even realize were
Of
assumptions. I took it all
course.
for granted about my role and my place in the world and my relationship to men. And it really took pain to start to deconstruct that. I'd like to say that someone with that rosy view could hear an idea and really consider it, but sometimes we just can't.
Mm-mm.
At least that's a limitation that I had as like an 18, 19-year-old. And it
Yeah.
kind of took for me having, I guess, workplace wage discrimination,
Yeah.
to put it bluntly.
Right.
I've been working for 20 years and I've experienced it many times.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a big eye opener. It's like, wait a minute.
Right.
And,
What the hell?
that was what is happening. And that really started to make me question all of my ideas that I had never looked at before.
Right. Right.
I didn't think they were even ideas. I thought it was reality. And that's Julia's journey, is she takes everything for granted. A certain reality that's kind of given to her at her inception. And you have to, you watch her through the story, have to pick that apart and decide what is she going to build in its place, which is like
Right.
another journey that you have. Once it's all kind of destroyed, now what? Who are you?
Right.
And one of the fun questions that I liked toying with was, what are we? And Julia has, I think, both of these ideas at different points in the book. Are we some kind of core essence, or are we our choices? And you
Right.
see her kind of have experiences with both of those perceptions and the ramifications of them. But how much of who we are is there, how much of our strength is baked in a sense, how much of our weakness is baked in, and how much is it a matter of choice, of raw choice? Are we controlling our destiny and building ourselves, or are there certain parts of ourselves that are just a given? And I think that's a hot topic as
Yeah.
well.
What do you think? I have thoughts
Oh
on that.
gosh,
What do you think?
here's my
I mean,
cheater answer.
we're here to just, okay. I like it. That's fair.
We can get more into it, but my cheater answer is, I'm grateful not to have to answer these as a fiction writer. And I've thought a lot about, gosh, nonfiction writers, like, poor things. They have to actually have an answer at the end of their book.
Right.
Like, make a really clear statement about what, what their opinion is. Whereas I think as a fiction writer, what I love doing with these really complex topics is taking the prism and just turning it.
Yeah.
Here's a facet. Well, here's another facet, and here's another facet. And I like doing that because, I mean, this is stating the obvious, but especially on social media and as these conversations happen, sometimes the nuance gets lost.
Yeah.
So, I like to try to show those glimmers of, well, but if you look at it this way, or if you look at it this way, and just kind of leave it open for readers to chew on.
Yeah, and I feel like everybody, I mean, there are people whose sort of convictions were baked in and never nothing has ever challenged them in a way that really breaks them down and sort of makes them recreate them. I mean, we all make choices, but some people just get away with their choices forever, and we could name some famous people.
You could.
For whom that is
you
true.
You could name them.
We don't need to do that though. But I feel like for most of us, probably, it's like you said, you were raised conservative. I was raised, more on the conservative side as well. And I feel like that's where it gets baked in, right? It's not like you're born with the idea that this is a woman supposed to do this. And I think what's lovely about young kids is like, it's not male, female until they learn that from their parents or their other adults. But then I think there's this idea that all of a sudden, and at some age, some people, it happens early at 18. For some, money of mine have been broken down. Now I'm over 50 and I'm like, oh, huh. So I feel like a lot of us have both, right? We have baked in, and we have, and like you said, if you twist it this way, you're like, oh, that's the baked in part. And then you twist it again, you're like, oh, and that's the choice part. And
Yeah.
that's the where I got broken and had to piece it back together part. And you're a different human now than you were before your sister died, right? I mean, that's the other thing,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So
And to stay on the topic of baked in versus choice, this is taking it a little bit in a different direction, but part of
sure.
the reason I wanted to examine that in this book from a strength weakness point of view,
Yeah.
I think so. I'm 41 now. Up till very recently, I would say I had never experienced any limitations. And please take that with
Yeah.
5 grains
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
salt.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I had never come up against any hard limit of, oh, my strength is ended. That's all that I can do. And it was during cancer that I had a complete mental breakdown at one point. And
Of
I've always
course.
been a very kind of strong, capable, competent person. I figure things out. I
Yeah.
like to be informed. I can push myself. I have a wide capacity in general for just things. And it surprised me to no
Yeah.
end to find that I had a hard limit and I hit it. Like I was running towards it really and didn't realize the wall was there. And that was probably the biggest identity crisis I've ever had.
Sure.
Of like, oh, I am not infinite. There is no more strength within me. I mean, you hear inspirational songs and see quotes, the strength is inside you. Everything you need is inside you. And I did not find that to be true during cancer. I hit a limit.
Right.
I think that can be true in
Well, you
many
have to feed
circumstances,
it. You have to
but
care for it.
yeah,
It's a garden. You can, if you continue to care for it, then of course it grows and the strength is there. But like in a
mm-hmm.
situation like that where you're caring for somebody else and your children and your job and whatever else. I
Yeah,
mean, and this is particularly true of women, right? That
right.
all of a sudden it's like you say, there's like literally you're looking at your garden, it's like scorched earth. There's nothing left.
Scorched earth. I love, yes, that is absolutely what I experienced. And it was a shock. I didn't think that that was part of me. My narrative about myself was I was strong enough to face whatever I had to face. Whatever life brings me, I can do it. Obviously not alone. And I had a husband
Yeah.
supporting me and friends and family, but even with that support, there came a point where I just ran out and I thought it might be better to not be alive anymore.
Yeah. I'm so
Thankfully,
sorry.
I didn't do anything, but
Right.
it was on my mind because it felt shattering to discover that I wasn't who I thought I was. So for me, looking to Julia and her journey through pain and weakness, she starts strong, experiences pain, has a positive view of that pain. It's at the
Yeah.
beginning really connecting her to the other women. They see her as more of a person because she can hurt.
Yeah.
Um, Josh, who is the guy whose heart she's going for, is warmer to her because he sees that she's weak. She's not like a cold machine. So
Yeah.
at first, there's a bit of a positive view of pain. And I've experienced that. I've
Of
experienced
course.
connection with people through suffering. But there is another kind of suffering that just completely
Yes.
breaks you
Yeah.
and makes you feel isolated, even if you aren't. And Julia does
Yeah.
actually have some help in the now scenes of the dual timeline. But that almost doesn't matter. She feels like it's
Yeah.
just her.
Right.
And
And
that's how
also
I
there's
felt
that,
during cancer.
I'm sure. And I mean, in your case,
Mm-hmm.
obviously you trusted the people that were around you because they had proven themselves. But for Julia, like everybody's new in her life, and everybody, what she
Right.
learns is that as humans, people's motives aren't always quite what we think they are, right? Or what they pretend to be. And so she's in a much more sort of limited position because she has to decide who to trust, and nobody is
Mm-hmm.
especially fully trustworthy, right?
Right.
Which is super
Yeah.
powerful too. I mean, that's okay. So now I want to talk about, because you also have this incredible career change in the midst of all this, and so
Yeah.
okay. So first of all, I think it's important for everybody listening, because I know we have a lot of aspiring authors who listen. So I think you mentioned, I think briefly, that this was maybe your 8th book that you'd written. You've been writing for
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
And you never quit. So tell us, like, how did that, like, I think that's the biggest thing, right? You can't quit. So why didn't you quit?
Because I'm stubborn as
I know, you
hell.
have to be. Good for you. Determined.
Oh,
We say determined.
thank you. Determined. Such a nice word. Yeah, I think I quickly realized as I queried my first couple terrible novels, terrible,
Yeah.
um, wow, this isn't that easy. I think anyone who queries will quickly realize that. Um, and I had to ask myself pretty early on the question of, wow, if this never happens for me and no one ever says yes, is this worth it? Or is this a gigantic waste of time and my
Such
life
a good
energy?
question. Right. Such a good
And
question.
I just, to me, I love reframing failure and success
Mhm.
to suit me.
Yes.
Um,
We have to. We have
I
to do this. Yeah, we have
we
to.
absolutely do. So I think at first I was like, oh, I'll probably get published quick, right? Naive little baby writer. And it didn't happen. And then I had to say, wow, am I failing? What if I always fail? And
Mhm.
then, will I regret this? I always imagine myself on my deathbed when I'm thinking about life decisions. I'm like,
Right.
okay, when I'm like 90, Lord willing, and on my deathbed and people are singing around me and I'm surrounded by love, will I think back on all those years writing and not getting published as a waste and regret it? And just framing it that way, I was like, no, I had so
Mm-mm.
much fun writing my terrible novels. Did
Yeah.
they suck? Yes. Was it fun? Yes. It was so fun. And it really gave me life. Actually, speaking of like grief and escapism, the first terrible novel that I wrote, the first one that showed me I could write something, was
Yeah.
after an ectopic pregnancy. I had just
Yeah.
lost the pregnancy. I almost died.
Oh my God.
There was
Jen, I'm so
emergency
sorry.
surgery. It was very dramatic. And I came home and I was devastated
Of
and
course.
totally freaked out because I'm a generally healthy person and suddenly I was almost dead.
Right. Those
That
are
makes you
very
kind of go,
scary.
huh.
Yeah. And also, like, do I want to do this
So
again? This is what can happen when I get pregnant. Do I really, I mean, it's a lot. There's so
terrifying.
much attached to that too, right? Yeah.
We could talk about
Yeah.
that for hours.
Yeah.
But I'd been pestering my mother-in-law for some reason to write a cozy mystery for years because she had a cozy mystery life at the time and she read cozy mysteries constantly. So it became kind of a joke that I was always like, Sarah, when are you going to write a cozy mystery? So I said that. I don't know why. She was with us at the time helping take care of me. And she said, Jenna, I am never going to write a book. Stop bringing it up.
That's hilarious.
More nicely. And I remember being like, oh, like, well, maybe I'll write a cozy mystery. Fine, if you're not going to do it. And
One of
I
us has to
opened
do
up
it.
a Word document that evening and started writing. And what I remember the most is just disappearing. Like I looked up and like 3 hours had gone by
I
and I
know.
wasn't crying during those three
Yeah.
hours. I was writing about this luxurious like bedroom that my heroine was like sinking into the comforter of, and there were
Right.
like warmed tiles in the bathroom, and I was writing the luxury that I wanted to experience, and it was such a solace
Yeah.
during that time of grief that I think I just never forgot. All of a sudden I had this new superpower. I could
Yeah.
open up a Word document, I could go away, and I could
Yeah.
leave all the sadness behind and
Right.
just have fun for a while. And so when I was asking myself, is it worth it to keep writing? It wasn't hard to get to the yes. Yes, it's emotionally healthy for me. It helps me be mentally healthy. It's
Yeah.
a tool in my mental health toolbox, and I'm not going to let it go.
No.
So I kind of gave up on the idea of being successful and reframed success as, am I enjoying this? Is this
Yeah.
good for my mental health? And it has been for 10 years. And then I had the
Yeah.
bonus of getting published along the way.
Yes. Well, and I do think that if you're, if I actually really think for anybody out there, if you continue to write fresh books, I think people tend to like sometimes get stuck on one book and revise and revise. And I think at some point you got to put that book aside and start something fresh. I think if you continue to do that, if you're open to, you know, criticism and you're learning all the time, which you really are when you start any new book, right? And you're reading
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot. I think eventually it happens. um you know I mean, and eventually it could be a really long time, so I'm not suggesting that, like, even, I mean, obviously even 10 years is not that long, really, when you think about people I mean, it's long. Yeah, you're like, it's long
I
enough,
hear you.
okay?
I
But
hear you. No, it's
people,
long and not long. It's,
yeah,
yeah. I
but
I feel like people ask this question a lot, like, when should I give up or how long should I keep going? And to me, what I want to like tell them with like a loving look in my eyes and maybe even a hug is like, you make that decision based on
yeah,
your mental health. and your happiness. If you want to keep going because you enjoy it, do it. But if it's destroying you and the rejection is just so crushing that it's ruining the rest of your life, then it's okay to stop.
Yeah.
You know, so even when I see writers say like, you have to keep going and eventually it will happen, I'm like, well, or it might not. Or it might, and you've destroyed yourself along the way.
Yeah.
So it's such a personal choice, and there's no,
so fair.
You know, the success is having a good life. If you can have a good life, to me, that is, you know, full of love and as much fun and enjoyment as we can, even though pain comes for us.
But the joy, I think
the goal.
It's the also, yes. And it's the joy of the process. I think you have to, if you don't love the process of writing, you should not be a writer, because most of what you end up doing as a writer is writing, right? I mean, it's not, it's very few moments between the champagne that we get to pop when something happens and the hours and hours and hours and hours that you spend in the basement by yourself or wherever you are by yourself, you know, crying over whatever sentence isn't working or whatever character isn't behaving or whatever else. So I agree. That's exactly right. And so I think if you love it though, if you love it and it's, you're driven to do it, like I did, so my first book came out in 2000. That's how long I've been doing this. And I was 29, and there was 1 year between whatever, however many years before when I was writing and didn't publish. And now 1 year where I didn't write a single book. And it was by far the hardest year of my life. Like I didn't write it because I had little kids and I was working, and I was also like kind of frustrated. I'd sold some books, but then I had this gap, and I was like, oh, it's just not worth it anymore. And at the end of that year, my whole family was like, you got to go back and write a book because you're driving everybody crazy. And it was true. It was like, I didn't realize how much it fed me and this part of me that was only for me, which is another thing that, as you know, parents and maybe particularly moms, you have put aside when your kids are little and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, and it was so true. I was like, oh my God, it's like I got off my good medication and I was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I so depressed?
I feel you so hard on all of that. It really is a mental health tool. Or it can be.
I mean, yes, I think it, I think it is. I mean, for us, obviously for you and for me it is. And I think it can be for a lot of people. So we started, I mean, we could, like I said, I think Jenna and I could talk all day about all of this stuff, but you had a career change, which is also super exciting. So you sold this, tell us about when did you sell this book? And when did you make your career change? Because I feel like they were sort of remarkable. And what is your career change? Because a lot of interesting things happening.
So I am a literary agent now.
So exciting.
With Storm Literary, I know. So the change, starting my path towards becoming an agent and getting the book deal all happened kind of randomly at the same time, right before my 40th birthday, which I feel like was just a gift.
Yeah, I just got shivers.
Was smiling at me.
I'm like,
upstairs.
The universe is like, girl, this next decade is gonna rock for you.
Yeah, I mean, my sister had just died the previous August.
I'm sorry.
I was 39. I was facing my 40th birthday. Like, what is the meaning of life? Yeah. What is going on? What is the meaning of pain? Yeah. I don't know. Like, what's the point of everything? And just, I was hoping in my heart and praying for like a new season is what I kept thinking of it as. Like, we've been in the cancer season for, you know, almost 4 years since her diagnosis to her death. And then it had been, I don't know, another year? No, a little less, another 6 months or something went by. And I was like, dang, when am I going to start to feel happy again? And I had these kind of desires to, you know, be an author, of course, even though I find joy in the writing. I have been shooting towards that goal and working towards it as well. So it was a little bit like, will that ever happen? I have to re-examine again, finding joy in the process, because it sucks that all this crap has happened. And there's nothing bright coming.
Right.
And then for some reason, I got it in my head. I was like, wait a minute, agenting. As I was thinking about turning 40 and what I've accomplished so far in my life and what I love doing, all of a sudden, a lot of pieces clicked. So I had been working with my agent at that point for 4.5 years, I think. And Made for You was our 6th book on submission together. So 5 books had died in the hands of editors whom I love so dearly.
Yes,
they didn't want them. They finally wanted Made for You, but that actually hadn't happened yet. Made for You was on submission and I wasn't sure, but I realized like everything that my agent does, I really enjoy being a part of. Like when,
Yeah.
she's building the sub list, I inserted myself into that process
Yeah. You're like,
because
wait, what about, yeah.
I wanted to understand it. And over six
Yeah.
novels, I had the chance to really learn over the 4 years and six books. Who are all these editors? What are they
Yeah.
acquiring? What are their tastes? How
Yeah.
do the imprints work? How do the houses work? What's going on? And I've kept an eye on the publishing landscape for years. And then in my, normal jobs for 20 years, I've been in sales adjacent roles. Right now, I'm a global sales coordinator for a beverage company. I've just been in sales related things for
Yeah.
2 decades. I've
Yeah.
also been kind of the legal person at my job. Anytime there's legal stuff, it's my job to
Yeah.
look over the contracts and work with the lawyers and do that. And it all connected. I was like, wait, I love
Yeah.
building sub lists. I love researching editors. I'm good at sales and I have
Yeah.
2 decades of experience. I have experience with contracts and I'm not afraid of legal language. And I love
Right.
books.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're like, wait, I should be a literary agent. That's amazing. Okay. So
Yeah.
when did you, because it's recent, like I feel like it's in the last, like it's this year or maybe late last
Yeah.
year. When did you officially become an agent?
Yeah. January of this year.
It's
But there were
amazing.
2 internships leading up to that. So it all
Okay.
started to happen over a year ago.
Okay.
I found an internship with Liza Dawson and then with
Uh-huh.
Reese Literary, and then found the job with Storm, which I feel so lucky to have found because they're an amazing team.
I
I
love
love them to
that.
death. Yeah.
And so tell us, like, what, because obviously I'm sure we have a lot of listeners also who are looking for the agent process. And obviously there's a lot of things we could tell them about how to find an agent, which is mostly do a lot of research, right? About what you're submitting and make sure you're submitting it to the right person. But like, so
Yeah.
I just saw you had an acquisition recently. So what are you, what are you looking for? What do you think, what do you wanting to see from people?
Yeah, I am looking very widely. I have a very broad taste in both my reading and my writing. I've written
Yeah.
adult, young adult, mystery, fantasy, epic fantasy, contemporary.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm all over the place. I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of fun with variety,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm looking for. So I represent adult, young adult, and middle grade across all genres,
Wow. Yeah.
except for like hardcore erotica is probably not my thing.
Yeah. Sure.
God bless those who are into that.
No, of course.
Just not me.
Yeah. Right.
And then like military sci-fi. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
too much military stuff happening, which is great for some, but not for me.
Yes. Right. You're
Everything
like,
else
yeah.
though, I'm into, romance, thrillers, horror of all kinds.
I love that.
Bring it on. And nonfiction. I'm also open to adult nonfiction.
That's amazing. So that is so
It's a lot of
exciting.
fun.
So 6 months in, you are like, you're doing this now. What I'm going to go back to this beautiful cover because I really, everybody, if you're not seeing us and only listening to this, you've got to go online. And I'm going to spell Satterthwaite for you because it took me like 5 tries to get it right, which I think I might have just nailed it for the first time. But so Jenna, Jenna, but Satterthwaite is Satterthw. That's the part that gets you. Aite. So and if you search "made for you," you will find her online. And this cover with this redhead, these blue glasses, she's so fabulous. I just think they did such an incredible job. So tell us, because I know obviously you're working on another book. I'm sure they're like, so can you tell us a little bit about that or how it's going? Or I know sometimes people are like, no, and I'm like, fair.
Absolutely. No. So funny story. It was a 2-book deal. So I had already written the next book while I was on submission with that book. I mean, it wasn't part of the original deal. I still had to send it to my editor to see if she was into it.
Yes.
Thankfully, she was. So
Yay.
The second book will come October 2025. It's called The New Year's Party. It was going to be summer, but they were like, well, it's like New Year's and snowy, so we're going to move it to fall. And I was like, that makes sense. But yeah, it's done. It's a more traditional. There isn't a speculative twist like there is with this one. It's a very locked room. It takes place in one day. It's a 24-hour mystery. And it's basically a friend group that comes together to celebrate New Year's after a 5-year hiatus. So they got together for like a decade. 5 years went by. Now they're all back together and their lives have really diverged. They've made a lot of different choices. And there have been various hurts among the friend group. So it's pretty much going along this party. This I'm nervous about saying this in case
Don't
it's
say
a
it
turn
then.
off to readers.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, no, I want to say this. It's a
Okay.
10 point of view book.
I was gonna say, you know what's so funny though? Everybody's talking about this James McBride book, Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, and there are like 54 characters or 43 characters in that book. And some, I mean, there's not 43 points of view. I don't think. I haven't read it yet, but I understand what you're saying. But if it's done, when it's done well, it's sort of the most fun, right? Because everybody, and you have to be doing it well. It means everybody has a different voice. Everybody's story is really different. That is
They are very
fun.
different voices, and my editor was very affirming. She was like, I've never seen such distinct voices. I knew who it was right away.
Good.
I thought it, I saw a 10 point of it. I was nervous, but you did it great. So I think I pulled it off.
To sell. That would be a hard book
Readers
to sell
will
first
judge.
off. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I'm sure,
probably.
I'm sure you did pull it off.
Just a lot of fun to kind of, like, I always end up using books as a tool to process whatever I'm processing at the time.
Sure.
And, in my 40s now, I'm at the age where people's lives from my past have gone in different directions.
Of course.
And I find that fascinating.
Yes.
How do we relate now after time has gone by and we've done really different things and we may believe really different things now?
Right.
How do we interact, and what is worth kind of hanging on to and what is worth letting go of? This is, to me, the age of boundaries. Like my 40s, I keep saying.
Right.
It's my age of being like, I need to take a hard look at things and not hang on to them by default.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me anymore. See you later.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
Plus,
and I'm
it's
not
just
that harsh person who's ending friendships right and left, but this book was a good tool for me to kind of think through some of these things that have been on my mind for the past couple of years.
I love that. Yeah. Well, that's super fun. I also think it sounds like a fabulous exploration of women, right? These are women friends. Are they women friends? All women friends together?
It is mixed group. It is a lot of couples, some singles. Yeah, definitely mixed, and there's a
so fun. Does it have a working title?
The New Year's Party.
Oh yeah, perfect. I love that.
Yeah, I do have another book coming as well. So we sold a book to Penguin Random House UK. Fingers crossed for a US deal. It's called Beach Bodies, and that will be out next summer. And it's a very fun, like my editor's calling it a thromance. So a thriller romance.
Yes, I love that.
And it takes place at a resort, and there are some deaths. Obviously, there's blood and murder because that's my brand right now.
Right.
And it was so much fun to write that one. That is probably the most fun that I've had in recent years writing a book.
I love
I mean, I love all my books, but for some reason that was just like a rush. So you can look for Beach Bodies as well.
Okay, I love that. Jenna, that's so impressive. My God, and you have 3 children. I'm sometimes like, what? Wow. You don't sleep probably, but
no, I sleep. I don't know how. It all works. Don't ask me to explain it.
No, I absolutely won't. I know you're on Instagram. Tell us where to find you online. This episode is coming out on July 2nd. I'm pretty sure now. I'm like, why did I say that without knowing? Yes, which is actually your pub day. So when you were listening to this, Jenna's book is out in the world right now today. We normally do releases on Thursdays, but that's the 4th of July. So we are doing July 2nd. So go find this book and tell us, Jenna, where they can find you to know where you're going, and if they're in your area, some people might be able to go and hear you speak, because obviously you're so gregarious and fun. So
thank you.
Where do we find you?
There's gonna be a little party. So if you're in Chicago or Chicagoland, July 2nd in the evening at 6:30 p.m. there's a launch party at City Lit on Kedzie. I'm gonna bring some boxed wine because I'm super classy.
I love it.
I'm gonna bring some cupcakes. There are gonna be some blue sunglasses that everyone can have.
I love that.
And I'm gonna be in a Q&A with Lane Fargo.
I love Lane.
Such a talent.
Yeah. She's right. She's been on the show for the collaboration with the
Widows
Young Rich Widows. Exactly.
I have not read that one yet, but I just read They Never Learn, and I could not stop reading. I normally do not stay up reading. I have so much reading to do. I can usually turn the lights off and push it to tomorrow. But her book, I was under the covers, my husband sleeping next to me with my like little light, just turning
It's
pages until like 1 in the morning.
It's dark academia, and it's a revenge book, and it is that's another fabulous book.
It's
Yeah,
so good.
she's
Full
so good.
of
Well, that's
like
so
feminist
fun.
rage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much feminine rage in that book. So okay,
Yeah.
but so if someone wanted to see the details, it'll be on your Instagram, I assume. What?
Yes, it's already posted on my Insta. There's a little poster that says the address and the time. And yeah, you can find me online. Let's see. I'm on Twitter, Jenna Schmenna.
Love it.
I'm on, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah,
I have a
we'll
really
find you.
like unique name. So if you Google my name, all my stuff is there. And then I have a
Yeah.
Substack as well. So especially if there are any querying writers listening to this, that's where I talk about a lot of agency things and try to give the inside scoop and, you know, what the query looks like from our side of things.
Yes. Yeah.
So I like to talk about agenting, authoring, all publishing things.
That's
And
amazing.
you can subscribe
You are a regular wealth of information, I'm sure. This was so fun. It's really exciting. I look forward to both new books. And I had so much fun reading this. I also stayed up too late, which is what happens when I really enjoy a book. So Made for You, Jenna, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so fun. And there will be a giveaway copy of Jenna's book, Made for You. So keep an eye on our Facebook page, Danielle's Killer Women, no apostrophe, over there for a chance to win the book, and connect with Jenna and hear all of her insights on agenting and writing, and sounds like everything. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
So fun. Everyone, this was Killer Women with Jenna Satterthwaite, and I'm Danielle Girard, and we will see you next time. Bye.